Probably went a bit over time there, lads, but Jesus, it's just gold he was talking there.
When he's starting.
Welcome to RTB, our very first episode here in the back page in Fisborough, River Telefish Bohemian, which is never been said again by me, and so I'm going to stick with RTB. And I'm very, very happy to announce our very first guest. It's Aaron Callaghan. Aaron, you're very, very welcome.
Thanks a million. It's
what do you think of that?
Well, I tell you, it's a novelty being in a pub. I think it's over a year since I walked into a pub, and to be quite honest with you, I'm looking to try and jump over the other side of that bar and just kind of sneak one of those quick points of Guinness. They look great.
So Aaron, come here. Listen, obviously, we were having you on the show because of your association with Bohemians, and you came from a very, very strange period in our history, 2012, when I suppose, let's be honest, we were on the brink of going into oblivion, and you were hired to take on the club. And what was your remit? When you had the first meeting with Bohs, what did they say to you? Look, we've nothing. We've no players, we've no money.
I think when Chris Breen gave me, that call came through. I was actually down in the hotel with my wife. We were going down for the weekend, and he says, I need to get a chat with you as soon as I can. I says, look, don't worry. I had to cancel the hotel. The wife was very disappointed at the time, but when Bohs ring you to come up and have a chat, like, it was amazing. So I said, look, I'll be up tonight. He says, no, you're okay. Come up in the morning. So I went up. I think it was a Saturday morning when I met Chris. And the locks were on the gate outside as we walked in.
Right.
And he says, look, this is as bad as it's been for a long time. And we're in a bit of a predicament. And we literally have no money. And we need to keep the club afloat. So he brought me in. And there was an interview with 3 or 4 of the lads in the background. And it was a case of, look, we've got nothing. We've no money. You've come from, clubs where you've been able to develop players, i.e. UCD. And down at Longford, we developed a lot of players, myself and Alan Matthews. So I had that reputation of, being a coach that could help young players develop. And I think it was Tony O'Connell, obviously, who would have been talking to Chris at the time in relation to getting a coach or a manager who could come in and work with young players. Yeah. Because that was all we were able to afford. Like, it was running an amateur basis compared to what Pat Fenlon had the previous 2 or 3 years. So I didn't even ask him. I said, look, I'll do it. I said, I actually did it. Even without knowing the budget, I said, look, I'm going to do it. I said, just tell me when to start. He says, start ASAP. So I says, no problem. We're starting on Monday. And we were literally on that Monday. I remember ringing Terry Butler, who was the assistant manager that came in with me. I says, Terry, we need to get some trials going as quick as you can. And he says, why? He says, we're after getting the gig at Bohemians. And I says, we need to get players in as quick as we can.
So that's what you did. Straight away, you and Terry Butler says, right, let's get trials together. Yeah. And he's got a load of players in. What did you do? Advertising in papers and all that?
We advertised, and anywhere we could. We had our own contacts. We had a load of players that we would have spoke to over the years, that we would have kept in contact with. We would have rang a few managers and coaches that we knew, any players there. Would have rang a few first team coaches that I would have worked with. Can you give me a couple of players' names? Blah blah blah. And then we got some advertisement out in the papers. We did actually advertise for trials, and I think we had Daily Mount. Daily Mount pitch was, I think, 5 nights in a row. We had 5 different trial nights.
No way.
Down in Daily Mount on that first week to try and get as many young players in, and we had over 120 players come on the trials. So you can imagine trying to pick a squad of 120 players.
Jeez, that would have made a great reality TV show.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, next time Bohs are going to do that, we should do that. You get you in. You could be the Simon Cowell.
I don't know now. I have to say, but to be fair, it was. We were just so busy. We were so busy trying to get players within the club, but we were conscious of the fact that we just didn't want to take any player because we knew that we were going into a very difficult league, and we were already 3 weeks behind everyone else because most of the other clubs at that time had signed their players. Right. So any of the players that I would have looked to go after were actually gone to other clubs. And we were very, very limited in what wages we could actually give these players. So we were asking players to come in, and we weren't offering them any money as such, but we were saying, look, we're going to give you a platform to play. Where else are you going to get a great platform? Dalymount Park. Yeah. You're going to play here every Friday night, and then obviously away to the other games. But imagine playing in Dalymount Park. I mean, some have never been there, and to get out onto that hollow turf and play with all the traditions and the history that the club's had.
The home Irish football and all that, yeah.
And the whole Irish football, and I mean, I used to go watch it in school myself when I was 13 and 14. You watch big Jackie Jameson and so I had the passion. I never played for Bohs, but I would have loved to play. If I had a chance to play for them, I would have. I never got the opportunity, obviously, because of my UK expeditions and then up the north. So, but we were given the players coming into the club, and I was offering them a platform to play. And I says, after that platform, you could go anywhere. You could go to the UK, you could go to a bigger club, a so-called bigger club at the time in terms of giving you more wages, not necessarily bigger club in stature, but bigger club at that time in wages. So we were giving them a platform to go out and play. So we were, as I said,
did you find that, was that a hard sell in any way, or did some people really need some convincing, or was some people jumping at the chance?
Some people jumped at it straight away. I'd say, we had about, say, 8 or 9 people. Straight away, I'm playing. I don't care. Don't worry about the money. There was about 8 or 9 people like that. But we lost players. We lost players for, say, 50 quid. So there
was a high turnover, wasn't there, in that first season?
Huge turnover. If you look at the amount of players that was turned over in that 2012 period, it was, compared to the year before, I'd say it was probably nearly the whole squad. I think we inherited 3 or 4 players from the previous squad. And Keith Buckley obviously being one of them.
Still in today's squad.
He's still in there today. And 1 or 2 other young lads who weren't really established players. Keith was probably the only player who had actually played at the first team level. So then it was a case of literally building a squad from day one. And I remember sitting down with Terry and saying to Terry, look, this is going to take, us, like, our pre-season is really our first 6 games of the season.
Wow. Yeah.
And I knew that. And I think, we were invited to a supporters discussion meeting. I think it was 2 weeks before the start of the season, and they were a little bit worried about getting a team on the park. Now, I was more worried than them, I can tell you at the time. But I was.
But you had to calm. You had to appear as if you had it under control.
I was trying to say to them, and to be fair, I think like by the sort of last week of that season, we had more or less established our squad. We had a squad ready to go, but what we hadn't had was a really good pre-season in terms of the games. Now, I know there's, with the COVID, some of the clubs this year didn't really have a good pre-season. But we literally had no pre-season that year. And a couple of games. So,
as you say, your first few games of the season was your pre-season?
Well, Derry away was the first game of the season. And we had
baptism of fire.
We had baptism of fire. We lost the game 1-0, and it was I'll never forget the game. We played really well up in the Brandywell, and obviously we lost the game 1-0. And if you look at the start of the season that year, those first 4, 5, 6 games, I think we only got a point. We drew a Pats at home. That was our first point, 0-0 in a Dare game down here in Daly. A lovely day it was at the time, and that was our first point to get off the board. But it was like, say, it was like, for me, that was like, as I turned into Terry, I remember we were having a drink after the game, and I says, that's it, that's the first point we needed.
That was a breakthrough.
We just needed to get off. We needed to get a point to give these young players a little bit of, look, that's great, we've got a point in. We're 4 games into the season now, and that's the 4th game of our pre-season. And normally, any manager will tell you, you need about 6 games in pre-season to develop your tactical principles, to develop your playing style.
And you've also got the added pressure as well of relegation, and everyone was expecting, everyone was tipping balls for relegation because of the squad that had come in. They were all new lads, as you said, fellas that he brought in on trials and all that. But as the season developed, like, you got that first point, that breakthrough against Pats. As the season developed, you started to hit your stride a little bit. Started playing some lovely football. I remember going down and watching that team and being really impressed by, teams down at the bottom are, you see them, they start playing long ball. It's about being defensive, being solid and all that. What I was impressed about Bohs at the time was they played some lovely football, kept around the deck and all that. And was that something that was important to you, that we'll get out of this mess, but we'll do it playing the right way? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'd come. You wouldn't think it actually, having been a tough centre half and going down elbowing people and getting elbows and broken noses here, there, and everywhere. But a little bit like Mick McCarthy. I mean, you like, I like to watch attractive football, and then you look at what Man City are doing in the league this year and Barcelona over the years, and just to name 1 or 2. But you do like to see good football. I mean, we used to play great football down at UCD when I was assistant manager down with Martin Russell. We played some really attacking football. We weren't winning everything. We were losing as much and as many of the games as we were playing. So one of the key DNAs I wanted to bring into the club is that we can play attractive football, albeit with young lads. And we were going to give these young lads a chance, and we knew we were going to give these young lads a chance. And we promoted, I'd say, about 4 or 5 or 6 at least, anyway, from the 19s as well with the other young players that we were signing. And I said to him, look, if we're going to go down playing a good style of football. I says, I wasn't into this, kick and rush stuff, a la Jack Charlton. I know Jack got a lot of success from it, but, it was most of the clubs I played for in the UK had really good managers who played, quick attacking football.
and they got it down on the ground. So it was important to get, and I think the one player that really stood out for me at the time when we got him into the club was Keith Ward.
Of course, Wardy, what a legend.
Wardy's a legend at the club now, and I had signed him that time. And I said to Wardy was sort of saying, look, I'll play more for. I said, no, Wardy, I don't want you to play as an attacker yet. I said, you'll get that as you get older. I said, but I want you to be playing in between the two centre halves and starting attacks.
Yeah, taking the ball off them.
Just drop it in. I said, nobody will be able to get near you there because of your quick feet and your quick brain. And he was brilliant at it.
Yeah.
And, we to try and get a player who was technically really that good, and I remember a lot of people were saying, you need someone in there who's going to smash people, a bit like Pico, who could go in and play in the middle. And we played Pico a couple of times in there. And what Pico,
Chris Shields type of it,
Chris Shields, and Pico could give you that little bit of, nastiness, and he could give you that little bit of athleticism because he was very, very quick around the park, but he just didn't have the ability that Wardy had to set up attacks. So we were juggling with that a lot of the time. I mean, if Wardy was injured, then we obviously had to change it. But, we were trying to play, and we changed the system. We were playing 4-3-3 a lot of the times when we kicked it off initially, and we had got the first point against Pats, as I said, and we were playing Cork at home. And I says, I'm going to change the system. He says, and Terry says to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to play 3-4-3. And I think it was the first time anyone had played 3-4-3 in Ireland that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So we played 3-4-3, and we had Dinny up top, and we had Dinny up top, and we Pete McMahon on one side of him, and I think we keep Buckley the other side of him. And we won that game 1-0. And that was our first 3 points. Right. Playing 3 players up front line. And it says, you just stay up front, keep narrow. Dinny will win the flick-ons, and, you can...
feed off him, yeah.
You can feed off him. And that was the real breakthrough. That 3 points that day, playing that system. And we juggled it in and out. We played it sometimes. We played, we sort of mixed up the systems to try and, teams would come watch it, say they're going to play 4. And we changed the system, obviously, to try and use it to our advantage. I
suppose as well, Aaron, just to cut you off there, the overriding memory Bohs fans have of that season, of course, was the 4-0 win against Rovers at Dalymount. And there's been many special nights down at Dalymount over the last years, but that's the one that sticks out in their memory, where the place was just absolutely bouncing. What are your memories of that evening? It was a gorgeous, beautiful sunny evening for the start, and the place was thronging.
Yeah, and I remember reading, some of this. There was a bit of media. Newspaper talk from Stephen. I think they had beaten Sligo away that week, and I think if they'd have beat us, they'd have gone second, or certainly a point off first anyway. So they were on a bit of a crest of a wave at the time. I remember that, and I do remember him saying things like, if we turn up and we play the way we need to play, then we're going to win the game. So of course you don't need motivation for a big game like that. But I was nervous during the week. I have to say, it was probably as nervous as I've been as the manager of the club. I wasn't even.
Why was that, do you think, Aaron?
It's just because I knew how big it was for the fans,
right?
And I knew we hadn't started great, and I knew we were still trying to find our feet. But I suppose the timing of the game came really good because we'd had our 6 games pre-season.
Right.
If you looked at those 6 games, we never ever got beat by. We never got a thrashing by any team. We only ever beat by 1 goal. And we were in every game. And I knew we were close to being a really good side and playing the way we wanted to play, free-flowing. And it just all seemed to come together.
Just clicked, didn't it?
It just all seemed to come together against Rovers. And I remember, I'll never... If you ever see the first goal, when Pete McMahon scores that on the back post, I had to laugh. It was actually the Stewart's in an orange coat. And he looks like a man of being tangoed. Do you ever see the tango ad?
Yeah.
And he has this orange jacket on, and all he's doing is he's going mad in front of the supporters, and the supporters jumping out onto the pitch. He didn't care. And I'm looking over.
He's joining with them. Yeah.
I'm looking over there and going, I said, turn out the tape. I said, this fella's mad. I says, what's going on there? They're all jumping on the pitch, and he's supposed to be the steward, supposed to be looking at the supporters. But it was prior to, actually, I'll give you a laugh on the first goal. We were debating who we would play up front in the game, and we didn't have a lot of choices, as you know, at the time. And we had looked at the team sheet, and I originally had Dwayne Wilson down to play wide left. Yeah. And we were going to play a false 9 as such. We weren't really going to play an attacker because we didn't have a natural attacker really. And said, so we'll start Dwayne on the left. And when I seen the team sheet and I seen Ken O'Mahon was playing centre half with Garto, I knew both of the lads, and I knew one thing that they didn't like was pace. Right. That was the one thing they never
Two
really
big units, but not
pace.
Two
big units, but they didn't really enjoy pace. So about 10 minutes before, about 15 minutes before the game started, I said, I'm going to change this, Terry. I'm going to put Dwayne up front. And he said, well, he hasn't played up there before. I says, I know. But I says, he's got pace. So he's got a bit of pace, so he's going to hurt them somehow. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the first goal, it was a throw-in on that far side, just in front of the big tango man, whoever that was. I don't know who that was. And they're throwing the ball. The Rovers are throwing the ball in, and it goes to Ken O'Man, and Ken O'Man is opening out, and he's playing. And I could see him playing to Garto, and I could see Dwayne looking at Garto. So he plays to Garto, a square pass, and Dwayne closes the ball down, and he nicks it. So he's running onto the edge of the box, just on the wide right of the edge of the box, and he's looking to cross it, and he tries to cross it, and I think he nearly trips over the ball crossing it, and it actually hits one of their Rovers players, and I turn to Terry and says, "Who picked him?" And Terry turns around, and before we could say anything else, and we were messing, I says, "Who picked him?" Because he couldn't cross it. It fell back down to him, and he clipped this delightful pass to the back post where Pete McMahon was in, and it was a great finish. And Terry turned around to me, he says, "That's why you picked him." So it was just so funny at the time. It was just surreal, you know, and I'll never forget that goal.
Like, yeah, it's still revered as one of the great nights of the Bohs Rovers matches. Yeah. And then of course went to Tallaght and got our first win in Tallaght as Bohs, and that was another very special and still a night revered by a lot of Bohs fans and Kevin Devaney.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that like Bohs hadn't won over there. You know, I think it was the first time.
Yeah, it was.
That I think it was the first time. That was the biggest score I think in Dalymount that they'd beaten. Yeah, they'd beaten Rovers in 60 years, give or take. Now I wasn't aware of that at the time. I found out afterwards, but they'd never. Now I didn't even notice before the game that they'd never won over in Tallaght. So that was the first win in Tallaght in the new stadium. Like, and of course, you know, true to form, we were given another young person to debut, which was the goalkeeper, Greg Murray.
Oh, of course,
Greg Murray made his debut that match. So talk about throwing a young kid in, 19 years of age, throwing him into the. So I picked him.
Into the Lions Den, as they say.
I picked him an hour before the game. I didn't want him to be too nervous, and. I said, "Look, by the way, you're playing tonight." I said, "Just go in and just do what you've been doing in the 19s," because he'd been doing okay. And Craig Sexton was injured, I think, and we had to put him on the bench even though he was injured at the time. So I said, "Just go and enjoy it." I says, "It's going to be a great experience. Don't worry about the result." I says, "Because I think that at that stage we were establishing ourselves in mid-table. We'd had some good results."
I think it was at that stage we knew we weren't going down. We were comfortable.
Yeah. Well, we were never comfortable, I have to say, because the league was so tight. Like, and even UCD, who a very unpredictable team at the time, they could turn and win. Anyway, they could string of results together. They could go down and beat any team at any stage. Like, so we were always conscious of the fact that it was going to be close. But so I called him in. I said, "Look, you're going to play. All I want you to do is just talk to the back four, on the evening." And I says, "Just do your best." Like, and to be fair, on the evening, I always remember after that game, even though Kevin Devaney scored that goal, it was the first time where our so-called older players, Dave Mulcahy, Detzer, Derek Pender, they were just unbelievable on the night. It was a night when you needed those guys, that experience that they had throughout the years. They just came together they were absolutely outstanding in the game. Like,
the celebrations went long into the night, and you know what? I'm afraid we've run out of time. But listen, thanks very much for being our very first guest on RTB. I think a lot of Bohs fans will look back at your time with us very fondly and know that you did an amazing job with very limited resources. So Ireland Callaghan, thanks very much for being our first guest.
No problem, thank you, and I wish the club all the best this season.
Come on.
I think the challenge for us now is to is to look forward to the second series of games with positivity, with the belief that we have a team of players, a group of players that can improve, can get better, will improve, will get better. Obviously confidence is a little bit low with some of the results, and we're disappointed with that. We're disappointed with our position currently in the league table. We're disappointed with the points returned so far from the first series of games, but we can't be consumed by that. We have to look forward to the next round of games with optimism and try and accumulate the most possible points that we can. So that's the challenge for us as a group. It starts on Saturday with a game against Finn Harps. Finn Harps come to us with great confidence. They've got a good group of players, well organised group of players. They're a big, strong, physical team, but they've also got a team of footballers that can play the game in different ways, and they don't get necessarily the credit they deserve sometimes for how good a team they are. So we know that we'll have to be at our very best on Saturday to get a result against Finn Harps, but that's the plan. That's what we want to try and do. I firmly believe we've got a good team, we've got a good group of players, we've got a talented group of players ourselves, that we haven't quite hit the heights we would have hoped for so far this season, but I believe the best is yet to come, and we've got to look forward to the challenge that the next series of games brings, and like I said, to amass the greatest amount of points that we possibly can over this series of games. But we can look no further than Saturday, trying to get a win and trying to get the second round of games off to a positive start.
Going into the fifth game of the season, happy enough with the first four in regards picking up 4 points from a possible 12. Start of the season, we played Treaty United, Galway United, Cork City, and our last game, which was 2 weeks ago, was against Peamount. Peamount, very, very strong, and at present they're the league champions. So happy enough with the performance, obviously disappointed with the result, but it was something that the players will feel that they had a great learning experience, and hopefully to bring it on into the team going forward. Unfortunately, on the day we picked up 2 or 3 injuries, so we're just monitoring the players at present, and hopefully we'll have good news and all players will be available for selection for a game on Saturday. This week game we'll be playing DLR Waves over in UCD in the Bowl at 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. Waves have had a very, very good start to the season. They've won 2 games and drawn 1. And last Saturday's game, it was a narrow defeat to Shelbourne. So at present, we're preparing for the game, and we'll continue and look forward to putting in a good performance and hopefully get a result, a good result. So just want to say thanks for listening and talk soon.
We're back again at RTB, and our very next guest is Gerry Farrell, a Bohemian member and a podcast guy and an historian. Would I be right there, Gerry?
That's the important 3 there, Eric.
All the boxes ticked there. Brilliant stuff. Gerry, we're going to crack straight into it, right? You know all about the history of Bohemian Football Club. We became a club in 1890. Well, can you tell us a little bit about the people who were behind the setting up of Bohemians back then?
Yeah, just the very quick history, Eric. 3 main groups of lads behind the founding of Bohemians in September 1890 in the Gate Lodge at Phoenix Park there, next to the North Circular Road. Mostly students, young men. We're talking guys late teens, very early 20s. They're from Bell's Academy, which was a kind of civil service training school based on North Great Georgia Street there, up near Belvedere College. We had guys from the Hibernian Military School, which are basically lads who were training to be in the army. And we also had a lot of doctors, so a lot of medical students who would later become doctors. So they all basically met up. There was some pre-existing sports clubs before that. There was a Bohemian Cricket Club, which had a lot of the same membership going back even further. And even apart from the cricket team, there was another club called the Richfield Sports Club, which was kind of, again, a lot of overlap in membership. But they met in September, they met in the Phoenix Park in the Gate Lodge, and there was a discussion about forming a club, and there was a vote. And there was 2 names put forward. One was Bohemians, or Bohemian Football Club, to give it their proper name, as we know. And the other was Rovers. So
What?
So we could have been Rovers, but for a guy called Dudley Hussey, who was the first secretary of the club, and I think Dudley Hussey was probably only 17 or 18 years old. He had a casting vote, and he plumped for Bohemians. So
wow.
We could have been supporting Rovers, you never know.
Dudley Hussey, what a great name.
Yeah, what a great guy.
Good man, Dudley Hussey. Forever the hero in the Bohemians legendary. But tell me this, Gerry, obviously it was a very tumultuous time in the country's political history. There was a lot of stuff going on, particularly at that time. Was there any Bohs members and players involved in any of the activities in those times?
Yeah, so we're talking about 1890, the club being formed. Obviously, you have the Home Rule crisis, you have the Parnellite split, you have all this upheaval, and then you have the beginning of the First World War. You have the Easter Rising.
There's quite a bit going on, so.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the kind of first, say, 25 years, 30 years of the club's history. And, you have a lot of young guys growing up, and of course, some of them are going to be involved. So you have all those guys who are medical surgeons. Some of them end up going the Royal Army Medical Corps into the First World War. You have a guy, Alex Splaney, who is one of the main founders of the club. He's a surgeon in the Mater Hospital, working by candlelight on the people injured in the 1916 Rising.
Wow.
And amazingly, there's a testament from one of the nurses basically saying he worked through the night, 7 days without sleep, by candlelight, operating on people and saving lives all over the place. So he's one of the founders of the club. The club itself, Dalymount Park, because obviously we've moved into Dalymount Park by 1901. And there is fighting going on because the volunteers try to blow up the bridges either side of St. Peter's Church, the North Circular Road Bridge and the Cabra Road Bridge.
Wow, so literally just outside the gates.
Outside the gates. So they're basically digging holes in the bridge and sticking gelignite in it to blow them up. They're obviously the main approach road into Dublin from places like the Midlands where there's big military barracks. Now, of course, Bohs are playing in on loan at the time, so they can't get back either. And the players of the squad are basically trying to find their way across Dublin in the midst of the Rising. But the volunteers, they basically dig holes in the bridges, they plant gelignite, they're blowing them to bits to try and stop the British Army from approaching. Now, the British Army, they have big field gun positions. According to different reports, one is outside the Deaf Village on the Navan Road, that we know today. Another up around Great Western Square. They're shelling into the area. There's shrapnel shells going off. There's lads getting injured. And of course, the guys who are manning the barricades, literally outside, Dalymount, are basically forced back. And most of the guys who are there fighting in Philstra either do two things. They try to link up with Thomas Ashe out in Finglas and end up out in the Battle of Ashburn, or they end up going back into town and end up in the GPO on Moore Street and so on. So that's kind of during the Rising. And one thing I should say is, luckily Dalymount, for the club, luckily Dalymount wasn't damaged. And it was even lucky that it was still allowed be a football pitch at the time, because you got to remember World War I is going on. So a lot of open ground is being taken over to grow vegetables and things like that, because there's rationing going on. So Dalymount is, Bohs are lucky that Dalymount is still available and isn't a vegetable patch again.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if we cut forward a bit later, obviously, you have the War of Independence breaking out in 1919. You have the Civil War after that. And obviously, there's a lot of people involved who have connections with Bohemians. So we could tell dozens of stories about involvement of Bohs players and members during this time. But the Robinson brothers really stick out to me. So they're two lads. They're from the North Inner City. Their mother's a fish trader down the markets near Smithfield. They both are part of the most successful Bohs team, the 27-28 team that wins everything. Wins the league, wins the cup, wins the shield, wins the Leinster Senior Cup, most importantly. And
yeah, absolutely.
They're also the first brothers to be capped by Ireland. So Christy, who's the
first brothers.
First brothers. And you think of all the famous brothers, the O'Leary brothers, all this sort of stuff. They're the first. Christy wins his first cap in 1924, plays against Estonia just after the Olympics in Paris. And then Sam is capped, wins a couple of caps a couple of years later. Now, apart from being excellent footballers, and Christy is kind of an inside left, a tricky attacking midfielder, one of the best in the league. Sam is a bit bigger, a bit stronger. He's a halfback, kind of defensive midfielder. Great guys, internationals, all that sort of stuff. They're also very involved in the War of Independence and indeed the Civil War. So Kevin Barry, we know, kind of Irish martyr in history. He's captured at the raid on Monk's Bakery. Now, Monk's Bakery is up off North King Street there. With him was Christy Robinson. Christy Robinson is actually part of that section of the IRA who is carrying out that ambush. And funny enough, obviously the connection with Kevin must be very close, because he named his son Kevin, and his full name was Kevin Barry Robinson. Right. And his grandson, who's still a Bohs fan, is also Kevin Robinson. And just a little tidbit on that. Their niece currently plays for Bohemians. That's Aoife Robinson in our Women's National League team.
So the legacy continues.
The legacy continues today, but they had an amazing life. I mean, Sam as well was probably actually more involved than Christy. So Christy is obviously involved in that ambush, is involved in a lot of other things. He's part of the Dublin Brigade. But Sam is actually basically one of the very few full-time paid soldiers within the Irish Volunteers, and he later becomes part of what's called the Active Service Unit, and he later becomes part of what is known as the Squad, which is basically Michael Collins's hit team, basically. He's there on Bloody Sunday, and there's an amazing connection with Bloody Sunday because one of their cousins, William Perry Robinson, is one of the youngest victims in Croke Park.
Yes.
He's one of their cousins, and they have another cousin who's also a footballer, who's also William Robinson, who plays in goal for Jacobs, and he's shot on Capel Street by who identify themselves as Republican police, and he's a former British soldier. So there are amazing connections there. But to finish off, Sam's story is an interesting one because Sam, joins the Free State Army after the War of Independence and the foundation of the Irish Free State. He's actually lied about his age, saying he's a bit older and all this stuff. But he becomes, well respected. He knows Michael Collins personally. He's promoted to lieutenant. He's down in Cork with Collins, who's a very prominent surgeon, who's someone that Dalton and others would know. Well, Oliver St. John Gogarty. He's a surgeon. He's a writer. He later becomes a Free State senator. So he performs the autopsy on Michael Collins. And of course, Oliver St. John Gogarty, who did he play for as a young man? Great sportsman. Played for Bohemians, won the Leinster Senior Cup in 1896. And look, we've only touched the surface, Eric. You could talk about the Robinson brothers. There's Joe Steins, who's another hugely involved guy in kind of Republican matters. You could go back to the founders. Hamilton Bell has been trailed by G-men because he's an Irish language activist and they think he's a subversive. There's amazing stories.
Well, I tell you what, Gerry, we'll definitely be having you back on because I don't know about everyone else, but I think I speak for everyone else by saying it's absolutely fascinating subject. And I never actually realised we had so much history in our history, to be honest with you. But Gerry, if Bohs fans want to hear more about you and your podcast, where could we find you?
It's on all the usual platforms, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, all that sort of stuff. It's a Bohemian Sporting Life. There's about 40 episodes up there now, more going up every week, so check it out. A
Bohemian Sporting Life with Gerry Farrell. Thanks very much, Gerry.
Thanks, Eric.
Where'd you grow up?
Leaksip, County Kildare.
Do you have a nickname as a kid or now?
My nickname is actually Nimi. My real name is Naima.
What's your favourite band?
My favourite band? I don't know. I'd probably be JLS or something.
What's your favourite food?
Tacos or chicken wings.
Who's the best dressed on the team?
Best dressed? I'd say me. Can I pick me? I pick me.
Yeah. Who's your favourite League of Ireland? Sorry. What's your favourite League of Ireland ground to play in?
To be fair, I love Eamon DC Park, although every time I've been there it's usually raining, but I still love it. It's a great pitch.
Who's the best player in the league for you?
For me, any day, Kylie Murphy.
Who's the biggest joker on the team?
Me.
What was your favourite cartoon growing up?
Probably say Kim Possible. I was a big fan of Kim Possible.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Calm down. And tell us something people won't know about you.
Given my name, you might not know, I am actually fluent in Irish.
Very good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Where did you grow up?
North Innisea.
Your nickname as a kid or now?
Cam.
Your favourite band?
Oh, I suppose I have to say Fontaines, don't I? I do like Fontaines, yeah.
And your favourite food?
Pasta.
Who's the best dressed on the team?
Me.
Your favourite League of Ireland ground to play in?
Dahlia.
And who is the best player in the league for you?
Tough one. Probably Ciara Rossiter.
And who's the biggest joker on this team?
Mimi Shimel, who's jumping behind the camera right now.
What was your favourite cartoon growing up?
Cat Dog. Ever seen Cat Dog?
No.
Cat Dog, Nickelodeon, no? No?
No.
Yeah, Cat Dog, that was great.
And the last one, tell us something people won't know about you.
I had an uncle that played for Bohs, Trevor Malloy, in the 2000s. People might know that.
Amazing.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff.
Come on, Bohs.